Welcome to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm your host, Corey. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and Podserve, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first. Joining me right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable is author Irma Vera. Irma, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for inviting me.
Irma, you have a new book out, and the title is in Spanish, and I don't speak Spanish. So can you tell our audience what the title of the book is?
Yes, the title of the book is Silencio que Dios habla, and it's right now and soon to be translated in English, which is Silence, God Speaks.
So can you tell me all about what you've written here?
Yes, this is a book that I wrote in mind to help the new pastors or the pastors that are been working, female pastors that are struggling or they're having difficulties to move forward. And so this book was inspired to help not only female pastors, but also kind of male pastor who might be interested in growing the leadership of the women in their churches. So this is a book of different women in the Bible that were able to hear the voice of God and be obedient to what God was calling them to do. And so they did it. And just for example, just to speak from one of them is like the widow that was called by God to sustain the great prophet Elijah. And even though she said that she was going to cook her last meal and die with her son, she was obedient when the prophet said, just prepare first for me and then you will prepare for you and your son. And she survived just because being obedient into that voice. And so we see in the Bible that even before Elijah went over there, God told him, go because I already talked to this widow who's going to be taking care of you until I called you to come back. And so many stories of many women in the Bible, God intervened in the very critical situation that they're going through in their life. And God just changed everything, changed the circumstances that they're living in to something different. And so this book is to inspire women in general, for everybody to read the Bible, to be inspired that when we go through hardships in life, we already have many women and men in life that they went through difficult situations and difficult times in their life, but stay faithful to God and He will turn everything for good.
Irma, how were you inspired to write this?
I was working on my thesis for the master's degree at Life Pacific University. My thesis was about female pastors. And one of the things that I discovered is that we do have a lot of material in English, but we didn't have much in Spanish. And so that was part of my inspiration to write this book. And also, as a counselor, I have a group of women that we gather together once a month and we talk about what's going on in our lives and dealing with the ministry, dealing with our husbands, dealing with our kids and our own personal agenda. And I learned that when we're leading the church, it's hard, but also it's when you've been called by God, it's very good to have information that can help you navigate it. And so part of me writing this book, it was that to help female pastors to do it with grace, work with passion, compassion, and be able to transmit those images of God in us to the people that we serve.
How long of a journey was this for you overall, the writing and publishing and everything?
It was hard, very difficult, just because the people who were doing it, they don't speak Spanish, and so that's very difficult. But God has been good, and this book, even though it was hard to publish, it's been a blessing already, first for my life, because I read it so many times that I cried. And so it's been a journey of learning, definitely.
Again, this book is titled Silencio que Dios habla. It's written by Irma Vera and published by Christian Faith Publishing. So pick it up at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, or right down the street at your local bookshop. Irma, thank you again for coming on the show. It's been great to talk with you.
Thank you so much.
Sitting down with me right now here at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable is author Dr. Michael Aaron Mason. Michael, welcome. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
Michael, you have a new book out. It's titled OPT for Oneness, A Fictional Journey to Inner Peace and Higher Consciousness. So, Michael, can you tell me all about this?
Yes, it's actually Opt for Oneness. Opt is also the word to opt for oneness, and it's an acronym, which is Oneness Perception Training, which is a fictional account of a husband and wife team over a 2-weekend workshop seminar where they have an audience, which I call optees, that are participating to learn how to achieve inner peace and higher consciousness. It came about over many, many years since my late teens when I questioned everything. I questioned religion, human behavior, philosophy, psychology, looking for answers. I questioned and questioned and questioned. Everything I found problems with. I found contradictions when I was reading the Bible, raised as a Christian Scientist with a Jewish father, until eventually I realized I have to quiet my logical, analytical mind, and I came up with a quote that's in the book: when you analyze your anal, when you realize you're real. And I had to suppress that logic that finds errors. And I came up with a concept that I called the original AI, which is the adversary intelligence that religions use as a fearful demon, devil, Mephistopheles, and all of that. And that's the challenger in life that tries to cause problems for everyone. And instead of fearing it, we can love it as loving the opponent. When you have an opponent in chess, there's no game of life, just like there's no game of chess or tennis without your opponent.
So is this the first time you've done anything like this, writing, publishing, or do you have experience doing it?
Yeah, no, I've been a lifetime wannabe writer. I had to put it all on the back burner to raise a family and have a regular career to make money. And now that I'm 72 next month, the last couple of years, I've been retired and been actually focusing really hard on figuring out how to write a book that would appeal not just to the fellow truth seekers, but to the average person looking for inner peace.
Once you sat down and got started on Opt for Oneness, Michael, was this a long process for you overall, the writing and publishing, the whole thing?
Well, I published a book that's based on a personal experience back in 2001. I started my own publishing company to publish it. And I wrote a manuscript, book-length manuscript, my original writing before computers on a manual typewriter based on my experiences in the Israeli paratroopers in 1972 when I was drafted there for 3 years during the Yom Kippur and all that. But I'd like to share some of the main concepts that are in the book, and one of them is the 3 opt truths. All is one, all is energy, and all is perception. And I explain in the book, in the workshop, how you can actually use those concepts to solve any problem of humanity. So there's that, and then there's the infinite heart, which I explain as a perception tool that humans have that's mostly dormant, and the perception dichotomy, which is, we have to perceive separation because that's just the way we're designed in this dimension of physicality. Everything seems to be separate from everything else, but if you follow quantum physics and quantum entanglement, everything's connected. So it's scientifically proven, and that's explained in the book also. So oneness is something that we really have to try hard to perceive, again, because of this perception dichotomy. The physical tools we have of our 5 physical senses are designed for separation. When we open up our heart, which I call our infinite heart, that's what we can perceive oneness with. And it's important for solving all the problems of society and the world.
Well, again, this book is titled Opt for Oneness, a fictional journey to inner peace and higher consciousness. It's written by Dr. Michael Aaron Mason, published by Newman Springs Publishing, and available basically everywhere: Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Michael, it's been great to chat with you tonight. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. All the best.
Kimberly Esker's new book is a work of Christian fantasy that blends mystery, romance, and spiritual warfare. The book's titled The Soul Exchange, Exchangeable. Kimberly is sitting right here with me now, and we're going to talk all about it. Kimberly, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining me tonight.
I'm glad to be here.
Kimberly, can you tell me all about The Soul Exchange?
It starts off with my main character, Rachel. Her family moves from Rhode Island to Lake of the Ozarks after her brother passes away, and they want a fresh start. And while she's in the Ozarks, she discovers a forgotten love, and she starts to experience some supernatural happening. And she learns that there's a mystery about these elite group of families in this Native American tribe that in the past there was this exchange that happened with some previous characters, and it kind of unfolds. And she gets diagnosed with a sickness that kind of makes her feel like she can't be with the person she loves. And so that kind of unravels too. But throughout, I tie in my faith throughout the story too.
Kimberly, what kinds of readers did you have in mind for it?
I'd say like high school, young adult.
So how did this inspiration come on to write this book?
It actually started with a dream that I had. I had a dream about these two girls that were in a canoe and they were arguing. And the canoe flipped, and they went under the water. And when they came up out of the water, they were switched. And I was on a trip. My husband had a 2-week business trip, and I was in a hotel room by myself for 8 hours a day. And I just wrote the book, and I kind of based it around that idea.
What does your writing background look like? Do you have experience in this kind of thing?
I took a few college courses on like creative writing, and I did some research papers, but I don't have like a degree dedicated to it.
So once you got started writing The Soul Exchange, was this a long journey that you got on, the writing and publishing and everything?
I wrote it years ago, and I just kind of sat on it because I didn't have the confidence. I didn't think anyone would like it, so I was afraid to publish it. And then my husband, a little while back, told me I should bring it back and try and do something with it. So he encouraged me to get published.
So you got your manuscript ready, started working with your publisher, Christian Faith. Kimberly, what would you say was the most challenging part about that publishing end of things?
I don't have the best grammar, so I really feel sorry for whoever edited my book. I would just say the editing. Otherwise, my publisher was really great to work with, and they encouraged me along the way.
Then I could only imagine what you were thinking and feeling whenever it was finally real. You're holding this in your hands for the first time, Kimberly. What was that like for you?
Oh, whenever I got the case with the sample books, I was so thrilled. I was like, yes, I've always wanted to be an author and published, and I finally held my book.
So now you're finally published, it's out there. What would you say is the most rewarding aspect of this all for you?
That I went for it. I didn't just continue sitting on it. I took that leap, and I'm just praying it pays off.
So when you look ahead, do you see yourself writing and publishing more?
Yeah, it's actually a series. I'm already halfway through book 2.
Do you know how far you're going to extend this series, or are you just going to take it one book at a time?
I have 4 planned because I don't want to give away spoilers. It'll be a 4-book series. I'm going to keep it going for 4 books.
So while you were writing, was writer's block ever a challenge you had to get through?
No, it all just came. As I was just sitting down, it just kept coming. All these ideas and things were connecting I didn't mean to connect, and this whole world kind of just got built.
I'm looking at it right now. The cover looks beautiful. Was that a tricky process for you to figure out what you wanted that to look like?
So I have a best friend who is a phenomenal artist, and she does graphic design. And I told her that I had a certain idea for a cover, and she was like, you know what, I got you. I'm going to design this for you. And I kind of told her what I wanted, and she did some mock-ups, and I loved it. And she went for it, and when she was done, I was like, I love it. That's exactly what I wanted.
Well, so many of our listeners right now are authors who are also just starting out. Kimberly, do you have some advice maybe that you could toss out there for them?
So what I got hung up on was I was worried that my skill wasn't there. I would just say, just go for it. Just try it. Because I sat on it for years, and I could have already been doing something with it.
This book is titled The Soul Exchange, Exchangeable. It's written by Kimberly Esker and published by Christian Faith Publishing. So head on over to places like Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes or traditional brick-and-mortar stores, and you'll be able to pick this up. Kimberly, it's been great to talk with you tonight. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Author Jason Tannehill explores the connection between scriptural teachings and the tenets of Alcoholics Anonymous in his new book, But for the Grace of God, a bridge between the Big Book and the Bible. Jason is sitting right here with me now at the show. We're going to talk all about it. Jason, welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
It's an honor. Thank you.
Jason, can you tell me what you've written in But for the Grace of God?
Yeah, my book was born out of a journal and out of daily study with a daily devotional and the Bible and study of the book Alcoholics Anonymous. I started to see this real connection in the principles, and I just began to jot down some similarities that I saw, short verses along with short sentences out of the big book. And I just began to recognize this profound connection which kind of enhanced my recovery and kind of increased my conscious contact with God. And I ended up with 100 of them, and I was inspired in meditation to go ahead and drop back and start writing a paragraph below each section that I had written. And so I did that with my personal experience of going through the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous and being in a program of recovery. And I just started to recognize something was happening, and I continued. And the next thing I knew, I had a journal full of spiritual literature that I was led to put on paper and get out there and get published, and hopefully it can help some people out.
Jason, would you say this is best for those who are in recovery, or is there a little wider audience?
My goal is it kind of goes both ways. So people that are in recovery tend to carry a lot of prejudice, as well as a lot of society, against organized religion and scripture. A lot of it's warranted and validated behind their experiences. So one of the goals is to, in the program Alcoholics Anonymous, where our solution is to rely on this power greater than ourselves and increase our conscious contact with God. And so a lot of people struggle with that. And so I wanted to simplify it and allow people to have a personal experience with it. But also, there's a lot of people that are very religious that have found it impossible to remain sober, or they suffer from particular afflictions, gambling, sex addiction, whatever it may be, that they just can't become free of. So it kind of goes both ways. And what I wanted to do was also to show them that the principles of Alcoholics Anonymous, which became so secular about 50 years ago, it carries the same principles. And it was actually a program that was born out of Orthodox Christianity. So kind of both ways. So people that are very spiritual and religious, but just can't seem to get free of addictions or afflictions. And then also people in recovery that are struggling with prejudice or connection with God and can't stand the idea of religion or the Bible. So it's definitely a targeted platform, but I do think it's rather large as a whole.
Once you started on this, was this a long process for you overall, the writing and publishing and the whole thing?
I think it was about, the beginning of 2024 was when it started to come together. I've been doing daily devotionals and journaling and studying the Big Book for about 8 years now. But at that time is when I really started to recognize the connection. And I would say I spent about 18 months or so putting it in a journal, pen to paper, no AI, no Google searches, nothing of that sort, all just completely born out of daily devotionals and time spent in the morning on the couch with a couple of books and God. And so about 18 months after I began, then I recognized, wow. And so I started to reach out. And then the publishing process itself probably took another 6 months or so by the time it was all said and done. I believe the book came out right at the beginning of December 2025. So almost 2 years.
Well, this is definitely an important book. Again, it's titled, But for the Grace of God, a bridge between the Big Book and the Bible. It's written by Jason Tannehill, and it's published by Hawes & Jenkins Publishing. Pick it up at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Jason, thank you so much again for coming on the show. It's been great to talk with you.
You're very welcome. And again, I'm honored to be here. And if it makes a difference in one person's life, then it was absolutely worth the effort.
Mary Bernice has written a faith-filled exploration of biblical healing and spiritual truth. The book is titled, They Make It Sound So Easy, Finding Healing Through God's Word. Mary is right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. Mary, welcome. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Thank you for inviting me, Corey.
Mary, can you tell me all about what you've written in They Make It Sound So Easy?
Well, I can't tell you all about it, but I can tell you some parts. How's that?
That's great.
Yeah, it's about mainly because I was watching born-again believers in church coming every Sunday in wheelchairs, on canes, and different things like that. And it kind of hit my heart. And I thought, Lord, what's going on that they're not walking in the healing that we believe in? Jesus paid the price for it. So what is going on? So I started doing some research. And that's what the book ended up being, the research that I did, trying to get an idea, what is it that we're missing, that Jesus took the stripes on his back for. So where is it that we're missing it? So I did the research and did a lot of investigating and had different people say different things. One person had mentioned something like, well, if the Lord doesn't heal me, it's probably because he wants to get glory out of me being sick. Wrong. That is not true. So different things like that. I researched, I got the word on it. And that's how I put the book together, to help people get past that so they can walk in the healing that Jesus provided.
What kinds of readers did you have in mind for it?
Well, I thought of people who are sick and have been sick for a long time, and they've prayed and they haven't seen the results of their prayers. Also for people, maybe they're not sick, but they know someone. And the whole point is that you don't have to remain sick here because of what Jesus has done. And I know sometimes we preach that and we say that, but the book focuses on where are we missing it then. One of the ideas that the Lord was showing me when the man who had a son and he came to the disciples and Jesus was just on the Mount of Transfiguration, came down, they all rushed over to him, and the man said to him, Lord, I brought my boy to your disciples and they couldn't heal him. And I'm thinking, okay, just a couple chapters ago, they were out there saying how all the spirits, the devil was subject to them and all that kind of stuff. What happened? So the man said to Jesus, if you can, help us. And what I noticed was Jesus' response was, if you can, all things are possible to the one who believes. So we're not looking for the anointed one or something like that. According to Jesus' statement, each believer has the ability to go in faith and receive a healing. And it was really exciting because after he said, if you can, all things are possible to him that believes, the guy says to him, I do believe. And so we have Christians and born-again believers who are saying, well, I believe, it's just not happening. I believe, it's just not happening. And so what he's saying is, Jesus, you're lying because I believe, and my boy is not healed. And I think he thought of it because, in the Bible, they just wrote it down. But there might have been a pause in there, and he thought, wait a minute, if I'm saying I believe and my boy's not healed, then I'm saying Jesus is lying. Well, surely that's not what the case is. So what does the guy say? Help my unbelief. And part of the book is, Lord, help our unbelief. Because if Jesus said, by whose stripes, if God said, by whose stripes you were healed, then somewhere it's not on Jesus, it's not on God, it's on the believer. Let's ask the Lord, help my unbelief. So the book kind of brings us through different areas in the Bible where we're seeing, again, line upon line, precept upon precept, that healing belongs to the born-again believer.
Is this your first time doing something like this, writing and publishing, or do you have experience in it?
I have written other books and published other books. This is the first one on healing. The other books I had were on being single and being a Christian, what we can believe, because at one time, being single and having one income, I went down from 2 incomes to 1 income. I had to find out, does God work for single people, or is it just married people that have 2 incomes coming in and then his word provides? But I found out that God does provide.
Well, I think this book will definitely be an inspiration for so many readers out there. Again, this is titled, They Make It Sound So Easy, Finding Healing Through God's Word. It's written by Mary Bernice. published by Christian Faith Publishing, and available pretty much everywhere: Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Well, Mary, it's been really wonderful to talk with you here tonight. Thank you again for being on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Author Jim Naccarato has written a powerful story that centers around one man's reflections of his life's journey and his family's past. The name of the book is What Remains. Jim is here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, and that's what we're going to be talking about. Jim, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, I'm really excited to be here.
Jim, can you tell me all about what you've written in What Remains?
Sure. It's semi-autobiographical about a father's coming to terms with his life, looking back at past choices, mistakes, and moving forward, trying to reconnect with his two children who have sort of gone their separate ways over the past few years. Sort of ends with a culmination of a gentleman looking back on his life and trying to put the pieces of his family back together.
Jim, what kinds of readers do you think this would connect with the most?
It's got that emotional tear of something that would be in a book club with women sitting around talking about it. Anyone who likes family dramas, actually anyone who's ever been in a family where they've had a patriarch or a matriarch pass, it's definitely accessible to anyone who's sensitive to families and family issues.
Jim, what does your writing background look like? Are you experienced in this kind of thing?
I was more of an avid reader in college and then leaving college. As far as writing, it is my first attempt at a nonfiction book. I've done some journaling and some first-person narratives, but it's the first time I ever stepped into the fiction genre.
So what gave you the inspiration to sit down and start off on What Remains?
It started with the passing of my father, and it culminated from that. My dad passed away, and I had some time on my hands. I took some time off work. I'm a teacher, and thought I'd give it a go.
So once you got started, was this a long process for you overall, the writing and publishing and everything?
That's a funny question. I purchased a 1929 Underwood typewriter. So I started writing on a rehab typewriter. And then I realized editing would be ridiculous. So I put it in computer form and had it edited with a friend. Then I had it professionally edited and then did a rewrite of it. So it underwent some drastic changes from where it first started. It took about a year to finish.
And once you started working with your publisher, Newman Springs, what do you say was the most challenging part about that publishing end of things?
There wasn't really a challenge. It was actually excitement. It was more of probably the challenge was the time that it takes to, get a book published, edited, and put out there. So the patience of waiting for that. But no, there wasn't a lot of challenge with the actual publishing part. It was hard with some of the edits, though, to see some of the stuff that I thought was good that my editor didn't think that was necessarily poignant for the story. Or letting go is hard when you're having someone edit your work.
And then it was finally a real thing. You're holding the first copy of What Remains in your hands. Jim, what was that moment like for you?
So exciting. So exciting. Matter of fact, when I held the first copy, I went back to editing it another time. Of course, you find things that you don't want in there, or there's inconsistencies in the story that only, the writer notices. But no, it was fantastic. I'm really excited about it.
So looking ahead, do you see yourself writing and publishing more, do you think?
I've got 5 children's books that I've published in the meantime, and I'm working on a second novel that's right now in a first-person narrative form, and I'm thinking of changing it over to turn it into a fictional story. But I'm always writing. I try to give myself at least, an hour a day to really sit down and put something on paper. I'm actively writing and, again, looking for someone to pick up What Remains in regards of a literary agent. So it's exciting.
A lot of people listening to us right now are authors who are just starting out. Jim, do you have some advice that you could toss out there for them?
It sounds trite or obvious, but the advice I give is just to write every day, even when you're not feeling it or you don't know what to write. Just to sit the act of writing and practicing writing. It might not even be on whatever you're working on, but just the art of doing it, and also the idea that people that are writers are good readers. To stay current with what you're reading definitely helps with the motivation to sit down with a pen and paper. So I really make it a part of every day.
Again, this book is titled What Remains. It's written by Jim Naccarato, and published by Newman Springs Publishing. So pick it up at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Jim, thank you again for coming on the show. It's been great to chat with you.
Fantastic. Thank you for the time. I really appreciate it.
The Safari Slumber Party is the new book by Cynthia Shute Holloway. It follows a mischievous skunk who crashes a slumber party. Cynthia is right here with me now at the show, and we get to talk all about it. Cynthia, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk to you about the book.
I'm excited to learn about the Safari Slumber Party, Cynthia. Can you tell me all about it?
Right. Well, so it's a story about a group of safari friends who all have their own personalities that are a friend group, and the lion is having a slumber party. And it's just sort of like your typical fun slumber party, but there is a mischievous critter watching them the whole time, wanting to join in on the fun. Her name is Spanky, and she is a sneaky, stinky skunk. And she tries to join in at some point, and the group is welcoming, but a little cautious, a little surprised when she pops in. But she just, even though she really wants to be a part of the group and part of the fun, she just can't help herself. She's the party pooper and sprays them all, and she thinks it's quite funny and runs off.
Cynthia, what kinds of readers do you think this would be best for?
So, I'm aiming for as young as like preschool up through, I don't know, maybe 3rd grade, 4th grade at the oldest. It's just good lessons in some friendship and personality types and fitting in. And it's a picture book, so the illustrations are fun and good for younger kids.
So what sparked that inspiration for you to write this?
Yeah, so years ago when my daughters were younger, I would say like early elementary school, I started writing these little stories about the sneaky, stinky skunk. And part of the reason I did that was, first of all, I just like to write, so it's fun. But also my younger daughter was diagnosed with speech impairment when she was 2 years old. And so she started speech therapy young and supported by the school district starting at 3 years old. And one of the areas that the speech therapist wanted her to work on were her S-blends. So therefore, the sneaky, stinky skunk named Spanky was helpful because she was kind of resistant practicing at home with us. But then when we would read these books aloud together, it made it fun and it helped. So now they're older and they're in college, and I'm an empty nester or a free bird. So I just thought it'd be fun to take that love of writing and the stories and get it published and share it with kids everywhere.
So you love to write. Have you ever been published before this?
Well, very small publishing. I actually got a master's in magazine journalism from NYU. And I worked for like 2 magazines back then. And so I had like little tiny articles published because I was just an editorial assistant. I came back to California where I'm from and pursued a different career in biotech recruiting. But I did have a few little things published back in my journalism days.
So once you got started on the Safari Slumber Party, was this a long journey that you were on overall, the writing, publishing, all that?
Well, I guess it was a long journey in that the whole writing of the story started, like over a decade ago. But in terms of getting it published, I had the stories ready to go, but I really wanted to work on the illustrations to bring out the personalities of the characters. Because I also I have more stories that I want to continue in a series. And so I just really kind of want to build on their personalities and what they can each bring to a friend group and teach kids.
Yeah, the illustrations are so important in a book like this. So was that a smooth process overall, would you say?
Well, I don't know because I've never done it before. And it wasn't exactly what I envisioned at first, but, the publishers were great. They provided me an illustrator and worked with me. And so that just took a little while for us to kind of get it how I wanted to look. And I wasn't going with like the traditional colors of like what a lion color would be or what, an elephant would look like. So I just wanted to kind of stand out a little bit. So we played a lot with color also.
Well, I think children and families are going to love this book and this whole series. Again, this is titled The Safari Slumber Party. It's written by Cynthia Shute Holloway and published by Haas & Jenkins Publishing. Pick it up at Amazon or Barnes & Noble or iTunes or right down the street at your local bookshop. Cynthia, thank you again for coming on the show. It's been great to chat with you.
Thanks, you too.
I'm looking at a new historical novel that places readers in the middle of the Vietnam War to witness the tragedy firsthand. It's written by Bernard "Bud" Cole. It's titled Goin' to Nam. Bud is right here with me now. Bud, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me today.
Well, thanks very much. I'm honored to be talking to you.
Bud, can you tell me all about what readers are going to find whenever they get into Going to Nam?
Well, the book is a little bit about my entire 30 years in the Navy, but really focuses on my tours in Vietnam between 1966 and 1968. And while it's very much a personal story, it's probably 90% accurate. I call it a novel only because I couldn't remember everybody's name, and I don't want to pretend to precisely remember every word of the dialogue, but I've done the best I can, and I think it's pretty accurate.
Bud, what was your target reading audience for this?
Both people who served in Vietnam, number one, I suppose, and secondarily, active duty military and civilian government officials serving today, especially now with the recent military activity going on.
So what gave you that inspiration to write Goin' to Nam?
Well, I had to wait until many years had passed. I'm now 82, and I really couldn't have written this book when I was, fresh out of the conflict. It's one of those lifetime memories that has become increasingly important as I grow older.
When it comes to writing and publishing, is this a new thing for you, or do you have experience in it?
No, this is actually my 10th book. I wrote 8 nonfiction books about China and East Asian security, and tried one novel written from the perspective of a Chinese naval officer, and now this book, which I consider to be my most important.
Once you sat down, got started writing this, Bud, was this a long process overall, both the writing and the publishing and everything?
My earlier book, the novel, was published in March of 2023. So this book took me about 2 years to write, maybe another 6 months when you include the editing process and the publishing process. So I consider it a fairly long-term perspective, particularly given the fact that when I served in Vietnam is many decades ago at this point.
And when you started working with your publisher, Newman Springs, what would you say was the most challenging part about that publishing process?
They are probably the finest publisher I ever worked with, and the editor was terrific. But, it's always a challenge when you write something. The immediate reaction to somebody correcting you may not be very welcoming, but I always get over that very quickly, and I really appreciate the expertise that Newman Springs provided.
And what's it like whenever that first copy comes in, it's finally a real thing, and you're holding it for the first time?
Well, it's wonderfully gratifying, but I have to confess at the same time that I'm never satisfied with a finished product, no matter how much time I spend on it and an editor spends on it. But I'm really very pleased with this book. It really expresses my feelings and my memories of the war.
So you have a lot of work out there. What would you say is the most rewarding aspect of it all for you?
Well, I think it's getting the message to other veterans of the Vietnam War. I've already received many very positive responses, and nothing could be more gratifying, especially those I've received from the few shipmates of mine who I serve with in country. That is probably the most gratifying aspect of all.
Do you see yourself maybe writing and publishing more down the road?
Oh, absolutely. I've already about halfway through my next book, which is going to be based more on my general naval career over 30 years.
Well, so much of our listening audience right now are authors just starting out. But do you have some advice that you could offer to them?
I'm a little bit unorthodox. I usually start off a book by writing down what I think the title will be, and then come up with chapter headings, and then sort of backfill from there. All I can suggest is just to start writing and keep writing without too much concern for what the final product may look like. In other words, I may write 10,000 words and end up saving 7,000 or 8,000 of them. Editing is really both tedious but also vital to a finished product.
Was writer's block ever something that you had to get over?
No, fortunately not. I sometimes get lazy, but I certainly don't call that writer's block.
Well, it sounds like a great book. Again, it's titled Goin' to Nam. It's written by Bernard "Bud" Cole and published by Newman Springs Publishing. Pick it up at places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Bud, it's been great talking with you tonight. Thanks so much again for coming on the show.
Well, thank you very much for the call. I enjoyed it.
No Turning Back, The Journey of an Ordinary Woman with an Extraordinary God. That's the new book by Japhlet O'Neill, and it's an inspiring testament to unwavering faith and God's sustaining grace. Japhlet is sitting right here with me now at the show, and we're going to be talking all about it. Japhlet, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you. Thank you, Corey. It's good to be here.
Japhlet, can you tell me about what you've written in No Turning Back?
Well, my book is my autobiography. I begin my story in the prologue with a tragic event which took place when I was a teenager. Then I go back and narrate my life's journey in chronological order through various cultures. Includes India, Thailand, the Philippines, and then the United States, of course. My story includes many seasons of life. People can relate to failure, success, sorrow, joy, desperate need and God's miracles in my life and so on. The overall theme of my book is God's love and faithfulness.
Japhlet, what sorts of readers did you have in mind for this?
I don't have one specific target audience, but I think everyone out there, no matter what their age group or gender, cultural background, I think they'll be interested in my book. My hope is that my book will encourage the Christians in their walk with Christ, and I think it'll leave the non-believers with wonder and awe of God. So I think it will cover a wide variety of audience out there.
Japhlet, how are you inspired to start writing this?
Well, of course, my main inspiration is God. It was definitely the Lord who inspired me to write down my story, to put into writing. And my parents played a great role. They were missionaries in Thailand. So I would say God's inspiration and my parents.
Is this the first time you've done anything like this, or do you have experience in the writing and publishing thing?
No, this is my first book.
So being your first one, was this a long process overall, the writing and publishing and everything?
Yes. I knew the moment God told me, inspired me to write, that came quickly. Then I started typing. But the method itself of writing the book, it was not something I planned. It kind of unfolded step by step as time went on. During the early years of my writing, I took my laptop wherever I went and did a lot of writing while waiting for appointments and soccer fields and, school parking lots and long drives and all of that. I just kept typing. And all the way the Lord brought to my mind, because it's my autobiography, the details I needed for each chapter in my book. My journals I had kept for decades, along with cards and letters from people I had stored away, played an important role in providing accurate information for my story. I typed my earlier chapters that way, and then at one point I decided, okay, I think I need to quit and send it to the publisher. And at that point, of course, I focused on reshaping and restructuring my entire story for smoother transition and better flow. But I do want to add here, I got a lot of help, along the way. There are different people who played a major role. My mother helped me a lot in providing information, filling the gaps for my childhood years and our family life in India and Thailand. My brother Sam edited my raw manuscript, during the early years, which was a great help. And then at the very end, he did a thorough final edit also for me. A college friend, he served as a peer reviewer, and he read my manuscript and helped me with edits and suggestions. And, of course, my husband played an important role. He helped me through the entire process of writing and publishing. He was tremendous help. His technical support, which included preparing and inserting hundreds of images into my manuscript. By the way, my book has a lot of pictures in it. And he also helped me proofread the many versions of my manuscript, which, along with his suggestions. So I'm thankful for the long journey and the wonderful people that helped me along the way.
Well, I think a lot of people are going to be inspired by this story. Again, it's titled No Turning Back, The Journey of an Ordinary Woman with an Extraordinary God. It's written by Japhlet O'Neill, published by Christian Faith Publishing, and available pretty much everywhere, like Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. Japhlet, it's been great talking with you tonight. Thanks again for coming on the show.
Thanks again, Corey, for the great interview. I enjoyed talking with you today.
Author John Wood explores his career working as a criminal defense lawyer in his new book, From Shiftless to Shifty, My 46 Years as a Public Defender. And John is sitting down right here with me now at the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. John, welcome to the show. I appreciate you joining me tonight.
I'm delighted to be here.
John, can you tell me all about From Shiftless to Shifty?
Well, it's a book that really spans my decision to become a lawyer, right on down through my career, the 46 years. And when it gets to the end, a little bit after and into my retirement, I talk a little bit about my attendance at the 200th anniversary of Harvard Law School, my 50th anniversary of graduation.
When it comes to the sort of readers that you were writing for here, John, would you say it was for those who are in the legal career?
Well, no, I would say that really anybody could read it. The people who have read it so far, many of them have been people who have no contact with the legal system, know very little about the legal system. They found it to be very informative and amusing. So I would say, lawyers would appreciate it, but I think it's a good story for anybody.
So what was that spark, that inspiration that made you say, hey, I got to write this book?
I thought a little bit about this, and I think that the sort of funny story that I really wrote down that was the genesis of the book, was the first part that I wrote about, was that time that my wife received a letter from the dean of Harvard Law School bemoaning my passing away. And the law school alumni department had become confused because it was my father, not myself. And so we found this to be very amusing. So I wrote about it, and then I began to think of some other experiences I had as a lawyer, which were interesting and amusing, and I wrote them down, and eventually it became a book.
I know as an attorney you do an awful lot of writing, but when it comes to this kind of writing, are you new to this kind of thing?
I never have. I wrote a short article for a magazine many, many years ago. But no, I didn't. I have not had any writing background. School compositions and things of that sort, but anything that ever got published.
So once you got started on From Shiftless to Shifty, was this a long journey that you were on over all the writing and publishing and everything?
Very long. It took me, I would say, about 8 years to come up with the final draft of the book. I started off writing this and writing that. The hardest thing really was to sort of get the theme of it and to get the beginning of it. You know, what is it? What's the first paragraph? What's the first couple of things that one says that sets the tone of the book? That I found that took me a long time to come up with.
There's nothing like seeing that finished product. So once it was finally in your hands for the first time, John, what was that moment like for you?
It was great. I was delighted to see it. It had been a long process. I looked at it. It was just the way I wanted it to be. And I have to compliment the publisher, Newman Springs. All they did was deal with the punctuation and paragraphing and things of that sort. They never attempted to dissuade me for putting this in or putting that in or anything of that sort. So in that respect, it's edited only by me, and it's my story. It's the way I wanted to tell it, and the format of the book is just the way I wanted it. So yes, I was extraordinarily happy with it.
John, do you think you would do this kind of thing again? Do you think you have another book in you?
I would say there's no way. This is the story. This is the whole story. It took a long time to write it, and I can't conceive of another book. There are a lot of things that happened in my legal career that were not in the book that conceivably could have been in it. Some things that were in it that I took out and so forth. But I don't think there's enough for another book. This is it.
This book is titled From Shiftless to Shifty, My 46 Years as a Public Defender. This is written by John Wood. It's published by Newman Springs Publishing, and it's available pretty much everywhere. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, and traditional brick-and-mortar stores. John, it's been great to talk with you tonight. Thanks again for coming on the show.
I very much appreciate it. Nice to have an opportunity to talk a little bit about this book, which was so important to me. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.